The California sun hammered down on Camp Pendleton like divine judgment. 300 soldiers stood at attention in the central yard, boots planted in dirt baked hard as concrete. The formation stretched in perfect rows, a sea of tan and green beneath a sky bleached white by heat. Not a single man moved. Not a single breath disturbed the silence. At the far end of the yard, near the supply depot, stood Private First Class Ilara Brennan, 28 years old, 5'6", hair pulled back so tight it might have been painted on her skull. Her uniform was creased with mathematical precision. Her boots reflected the sun like mirrors. She held her clipboard against her chest, fingers white-knuckled around the metal edge. She was invisible, or at least she should have been. The military police at the gate straightened as an old sedan rolled to a stop. The vehicle was civilian, unremarkable, the kind of car that disappeared in traffic. But the man who stepped out was anything but forgettable. He was 67 years old, tall, with shoulders that still carried the memory of violent strength. His hair was steel gray, cut military short despite the civilian clothes. He wore dark slacks and a button-down shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled to the elbows. His forearms were roped with muscle and scarred with the hieroglyphics of old wounds. The younger MP stepped forward, hand raised. "Sir, this is a restricted area. I need to see." The old man reached into his pocket. His movements were economical, precise. He produced a leather wallet, flipped it open. The MP's face went pale. "Colonel Kincaid," the young man stammered. We weren't notified." "At ease, son." The voice was gravel over granite. "I'm retired. No need for ceremony." But the MP snapped to attention anyway. Old instincts never die. Neither does respect for men who've earned it in blood. Colonel Thaddeus Kincaid walked through the gate without another word. His stride was measured, unhurried, but there was purpose in every step. He crossed the yard as if he owned it, as if he'd crossed 1,000 yards like this before, in darker places, under hostile fire. The formation didn't break. 300 pairs of eyes stayed locked forward, but they tracked him anyway, the way prey tracks a predator even when pretending not to notice. Kincaid's gaze swept across the ranks. He was searching, hunting, and then he stopped. At the edge of the formation, near the supply depot, where shadows pooled like spilled ink, he found her. Ilara Brennan. Her face was turned forward, regulation perfect, but he knew she'd seen him. He knew because her fingers had tightened on the clipboard until the metal groaned. Kincaid walked toward her. The distance between them couldn't have been more than 50 yards, but it might as well have been an ocean, or 22 years. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to speak, close enough for her to smell the old leather and gun oil that still clung to him like cologne. For 5 seconds, neither of them moved. Then Colonel Thaddeus Kincaid, retired SEAL commander, veteran of 3 wars and 24 classified operations, raised his right hand to his brow. The salute was crisp, perfect, the kind of salute rendered between warriors who've shared the same battlefield. "Monarch," he said quietly, "welcome home." The clipboard slipped from Ilara's fingers. It hit the ground with a clatter that echoed across the silent yard like a gunshot. 300 soldiers watched. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And somewhere in the desert heat, in the shimmer of memory and time, the past reached out and grabbed the present by the throat. 22 years earlier. March 23, 2003, Nasiriyah, Iraq. The city burned. Black smoke rose in pillars that stained the sky the color of a bruise. The air tasted of cordite and copper. Somewhere close, small arms fire crackled like kindling in a furnace. Inside a bullet-scarred compound on the city's edge, Dr. Meredith Brennan pressed her back against a wall and tried to remember how to breathe. She was 35 years old, slender, with dark hair and eyes the color of smoke. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, a loose shirt, but there was nothing civilian about the fear in her chest or the pistol in her hand. In her left arm, she held her daughter. Alara was 6 years old, small for her age, dark hair like her mother's. She clutched a stuffed butterfly, purple and orange fabric worn soft from years of love. She didn't cry. She'd stopped crying hours ago when the first mortars hit. "It's okay, baby," Meredith whispered. Her voice shook. "It's going to be okay. They're coming. I promise they're coming." Outside, the firefight intensified. Shouts in Arabic, the distinctive crack of AK-47s, and then, cutting through the chaos like a blade, the controlled bursts of American weapons. M4 carbines, SA dubs, the disciplined fire of professionals. Meredith closed her eyes. Thank God. The door exploded inward, not opened, destroyed. A shaped charge had blown the hinges clean off. The door fell flat, and through the smoke came men in desert camouflage and body armor, weapons up, eyes cold and searching. The first man through was tall, broad-shouldered, 45 years old but moving like a man half that age. His face was streaked with dust and sweat. His eyes found Meredith and Alara immediately. "Dr. Brennan," he said, not a question, a confirmation. "Lieutenant Colonel Kincaid." Meredith's voice was barely a whisper. "You came." "Said I would." He moved to her side, quick and efficient. His eyes scanned her body, cataloging injuries with practiced efficiency. The blood on her shirt, the way she favored her left side. "Can you walk?" I think so." "Good, we need to move, now." Behind him, more SEALs swept the room, checking corners, securing exits. Professional, deadly, a well-oiled machine designed for violence. Petty Officer Brendan Wolfe covered the left flank, his weapon tracking smoothly across potential threat points. Chief Warrant Officer Silas Drake moved to the window, scanning for enemy movement. Kincaid reached for Alara. The girl looked up at him with eyes too old for her face, eyes that had seen things no child should ever see. "Hey there, sweetheart," Kincaid said softly. "I'm here to take you somewhere safe. Is that okay?" Alara didn't speak. She just tightened her grip on the butterfly. Meredith's hand shot out, grabbed Kincaid's arm. Her fingers were cold. "The files," she gasped, "in the butterfly. Microfilm. Everything I found, the networks, the cells, the safe houses. It's all there." Kincaid's eyes widened fractionally. "You hid it in a stuffed animal?" They wouldn't search a child's toy. A smile ghosted across her lips. Blood stained her teeth. "Basic tradecraft, Colonel." "Clever." He looked at Alara again, at the worn purple butterfly in her small hands. Intelligence that could save hundreds of lives, maybe thousands, hidden in fabric and stuffing. "We'll get it out safe, I promise." "And her." Meredith's grip tightened. Her voice dropped to something fierce, desperate. "Promise me, whatever happens to me, promise me she gets out. Promise me she flies." "Ma'am, you're both getting—" The wall exploded. Not the door this time, the wall itself. Rocket-propelled grenade, maybe an RPG-7, the kind of Soviet-era hardware that flooded Iraq like water. The blast threw Kincaid sideways. His ears rang. The world turned to cotton and smoke. When his vision cleared, Meredith was on the ground. There was too much blood. Far too much. "No!" Kincaid scrambled to her side. "Medic! I need a medic!" But Meredith was shaking her head. She knew. She'd known the moment the wall came down. She reached up with a trembling hand and touched Kincaid's face, leaving a streak of blood on his cheek. "Raise her," she whispered. "Teach her to be strong. Teach her to fly." "Meredith, promise me, Thaddeus." He looked into her eyes. He saw the plea there, the desperation, the mother's last prayer. "I promise," he said. Meredith Brennan smiled. Then her hand fell away. Kincaid knelt there for 3 seconds. Just 3. A professional can't afford more. Then he turned to Alara, who sat against the wall, still clutching the butterfly, staring at her mother's body with eyes that didn't blink. "We have to go," he said gently. Alara didn't move. "Sweetheart, we have to leave, right now." Still nothing. Kincaid made a decision. He scooped the girl into his arms, butterfly and all. She was light, too light. She didn't resist, didn't speak, just stared over his shoulder as he carried her toward the door. Behind them, the firefight raged. SEALs laid down suppressing fire. Smoke grenades billowed. Wolf and Drake moved as flankers, covering their six. They moved as a unit, covering each other, professional and precise even in chaos. Kincaid carried Alara through hell, past burning vehicles, over rubble, through streets where bullets sang and men screamed. She never made a sound, just held that butterfly and watched the world burn. When they finally reached the extraction point, when the helicopters came thundering out of the sky like salvation itself, Kincaid strapped Alara into a seat. He checked the harness twice, made sure she was secure. She looked up at him then, finally, those old, old eyes in that young face. "My mom's not coming," she said. Not a question, a statement. Kincaid's throat closed. He knelt down so they were eye to eye. "No, sweetheart, she's not. She told me you'd keep me safe. I will. Promise?" He touched the butterfly in her hands gently. "I promise. You're going to fly, Alara. Your mom wanted that, and I always keep my promises." The helicopter lifted off. Below them, Nasiriyah burned. The city was a wound in the desert, bleeding smoke into the sky. Alara pressed her face to the window and watched it disappear. She didn't cry. Not then, not later, not for years. But she never forgot. Present day, 3 weeks earlier. Camp Pendleton sprawled across Southern California like a small city dedicated to the art of war. 45 miles north of San Diego, it was home to the 1st Marine Division, thousands of sailors and Marines, and enough firepower to level a small country. Alara Brennan arrived on a Tuesday in late September. She drove through the main gate in a 10-year-old sedan, showed her orders to the guard, and followed the directions to the supply depot without comment or complaint. She was assigned Barracks Delta, Building 7, Room 12. She carried her duffel up the stairs herself, declined help from 2 privates who offered, and unpacked with methodical precision. Uniforms on hangers, organized by type. Boots lined up beneath the bed. Personal items minimal. A single photograph in a waterproof case, 3 books, and a wooden box she didn't open. The other women in the barracks tried to be friendly. Ask questions. Where are you from? Where did you serve? Got a boyfriend? Husband? Alara answered politely but briefly. From the East Coast, various postings. No, and no. They stopped asking after 2 days. She reported for duty at 0530 every morning, 45 minutes before required. She inventoried supplies with obsessive attention to detail. She updated manifests by hand because the computer system was unreliable. She never took breaks longer than regulation required. Her supervisor, Staff Sergeant Hayes, watched her for a week before speaking. Hayes was 38, career logistics NCO, with a weathered face and suspicious eyes. "Brennan." "Yes, Staff Sergeant." "You trying to make everyone else look bad?" "No, Staff Sergeant." "Then why are you here an hour before everyone else?" "I like to be prepared, Staff Sergeant." Hayes studied her, really looked at her, saw the way she moved, economical, efficient, nothing wasted. Saw the way her eyes tracked everything, cataloging, assessing, measuring threats that weren't there. "Where'd you serve before this?" he asked. "Classified rotation, Staff Sergeant, logistics support." "Uh-huh." He didn't believe her, but he didn't push. "Well, keep doing what you're doing. Just maybe don't make everyone else look quite so lazy." "I'll try, Staff Sergeant." He walked away, shaking his head. 3 days later, Alara wore short sleeves for the first time. The heat was brutal, over 90 degrees, and regulations permitted it. She thought nothing of it. But Staff Sergeant Cole Garrison did. Garrison was 35, infantry, with 15 years in and a chip on his shoulder the size of a Humvee. He had the kind of face that looked like it was carved from wood, all hard angles and sharp edges. He was standing in the chow line when Alara walked past with her tray. He saw the tattoo immediately. It covered most of her left forearm, a monarch butterfly rendered in exquisite detail. Orange and black wings spread wide, veins visible in the delicate membrane. Beautiful, intricate, feminine. Garrison nudged the corporal next to him. Jasper Hewitt, 26, eager to please, quick to laugh at the right jokes. "Check it out," Garrison muttered. "Princess has a butterfly." Hewitt grinned. "What's she gonna do? Flutter at the enemy?" The comment was loud enough to carry. 3 nearby soldiers turned, looked, saw the tattoo, smirked. Ilara kept walking. She found an empty table in the corner, sat down, and ate without looking up. But her jaw was tight. Her fingers on the fork were white-knuckled. She heard them. She always heard them. The next day, it was worse. Garrison made sure of it. In the motor pool, he leaned against a Humvee and watched Alara check tire pressures. She worked methodically, clipboard in hand, verifying every reading against the maintenance log. "Hey, Hewitt," Garrison called out, loud. "I'll bet you $100 the princess can't identify 3 types of tactical vehicles." Hewitt played along. "You're on." They walked over. Ilara straightened, faced them. "Brennan," Garrison said. He pointed at a vehicle 30 yards away. "What's that?" Ilara glanced at it. MATV, MRAP variant, blast resistant, used primarily for convoy operations in high-threat environments. Garrison's smile faltered. He pointed at another vehicle. "And that?" LAV-25, light armored vehicle, 8-wheeled, amphibious, 25mm chain gun, crew of 3 plus 6 passengers. Hewitt whistled. "Lucky guess." "Is it?" Ilara's voice was quiet. She pointed without looking. "That's a JLTV. That's an MTVR. That's an AAV-7. Should I continue?" Garrison's face darkened. "You memorize Wikipedia or something?" "No, Sergeant. I memorized the field manuals. All of them." She walked away, left them standing there. Hewitt laughed nervously. "Damn, she got you." Garrison watched her go, his hands clenched. Google, had to be Google. But his voice lacked conviction. Words spread fast in a place like Camp Pendleton. By the end of the week, everyone in supply knew about the clerk who could identify every vehicle on base. Some were impressed, most were skeptical, but all of them noticed the butterfly. Ilara ate alone, worked alone, spoke only when necessary. She became a ghost in her own unit, present but not participating, seen but not acknowledged. She told herself it didn't matter. She'd chosen this, chosen the quiet life, chosen invisibility. But late at night, in her bunk, she'd pull out that photograph, the one she kept in the waterproof case. She'd trace the faces with her finger, young men in desert camouflage, a burned city behind them, and in the center, held in strong arms, a little girl with a purple butterfly. She'd whisper to the picture sometimes, "I'm still flying, Mom, just..." lower than before. Then she'd put it away and stare at the ceiling until sleep came, if it came at all. The second week brought Lieutenant Colonel Everett Briggs. Briggs was 52, career logistics officer, with a reputation for running a tight ship and suffering no fools. He'd been on base for 6 years and knew every trick, every shortcut, every way soldiers tried to game the system. He'd heard about Brennan, heard she was weird, antisocial, but good at her job. He decided to test that himself. He found her in Warehouse 7 on a Thursday afternoon. She was conducting inventory, checking serial numbers against a manifest. The warehouse was huge, dim, filled with crates and equipment stacked 20 feet high. "Brennan," Briggs called out. She turned immediately, snapped to attention. "Sir." "At ease." He walked closer, boots echoing on concrete. "I'm doing spot inspections today. You're up. Yes, sir. He pointed at a crate. What's in that? 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO rounds, sir. 5,000 rounds per crate. Lot number Tango 742. And that one? 50 caliber BMG, linked ammunition, 2,000 rounds. Briggs moved faster, pointing randomly. That? 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 Ilara answered without hesitation. MK-19 grenades, AT-4 anti-tank rockets, Claymore mines, C4 plastic explosive. She knew quantities, lot numbers, storage requirements, safety protocols. Briggs stopped, stared at her. How long have you been here, Brennan? 13 days, sir. And you've memorized the inventory of a warehouse this size? Yes, sir. It's my job to know what we have. Most people use the computer system for that. The system crashes, sir. My memory doesn't. Briggs walked a slow circle around her. He noticed things. The way she stood, balanced, weight-centered, like someone who'd been trained to react to threats. The way her eyes tracked him, not nervous but aware, constantly aware. Where did you serve before this? He asked. Classified rotation, sir. Logistics support. You keep saying that, but I've been doing this 28 years, Brennan. I've never seen a logistics specialist with your skill set. I take my work seriously, sir. I don't doubt that. He paused. What's the effective range of an M4 carbine? 500 meters for a point target, sir. 800 for area suppression. Cyclic rate of fire for an M249 SAW. 725 rounds per minute, sir. Muzzle velocity of 7.62 NATO. 2,800 feet per second, sir. Briggs smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Those aren't logistics questions, Brennan. Those are infantry questions, combat questions. Ilara's expression didn't change. The manual covers all specifications, sir. I read thoroughly. Uh-huh. He didn't believe her, but he couldn't prove otherwise. Carry on, Private. Keep up the good work. Yes, sir. He walked away, but he made a note in his mental file. Brennan wasn't just unusual, she was hiding something. And in Briggs's experience, people only hid things that mattered. He decided to watch her more closely. That same afternoon, Garrison made his move. He found Ilara outside the warehouse, carrying a box of manifests back to the office. She walked quickly, efficiently, eyes forward. Garrison stepped into her path. Brennan, she stopped, looked up at him. Sergeant, got a question for you. Yes, Sergeant? He pointed at her tattoo. The butterfly was vivid in the afternoon sun, wings spread across pale skin. What's with the ink? You trying to pretty up the uniform? Ilara's jaw tightened. It's personal, Sergeant. Personal? Garrison snorted. You know what I think? I think it's disrespectful. This is the Marine Corps, not a sorority. Tattoos are within regulation, Sergeant. Size, placement, content, all approved. Doesn't mean it's appropriate. He stepped closer, invaded her space. Butterflies are for little girls, Brennan, not soldiers. Ilara met his eyes, didn't back down. Is there a point to this conversation, Sergeant? The point is, you don't belong here. You're soft, weak, playing dress-up in a uniform you haven't earned. Her fingers tightened on the box. I've earned everything I have, Sergeant, same as you. Bullshit. You sit in an air-conditioned office while real Marines sweat and bleed. You count boxes while we prepare for war. You're a clerk, nothing more. For just a moment, less than a second, something flashed in Ilara's eyes. Something cold and hard and dangerous. Then it was gone. If that's what you believe, Sergeant, you're entitled to your opinion. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. She stepped around him, walked away. Garrison watched her go. He felt unsatisfied. He'd wanted a reaction, tears, anger, something, but she'd given him nothing. It made him angrier. This isn't over, Princess, he muttered. But Ilara was already gone. The announcement came during Friday morning formation. Lieutenant Colonel Briggs stood before the assembled supply division and cleared his throat. Listen up. We're getting a distinguished visitor next week. Colonel Thaddeus Kincaid, retired SEAL Team 3 commander. He'll be conducting a 2-week seminar on special operations logistics during the Iraq War. I expect everyone to attend and show proper respect. Dismissed. The formation broke up. Soldiers dispersed, chattering about the weekend. Ilara stood frozen. Her clipboard slipped from her fingers, hit the ground, papers scattered. Brennan? Corporal Hewitt paused. You okay? She didn't answer, couldn't. Her ears were ringing. Her vision had narrowed to a tunnel. Kincaid, here, after all these years. Brennan? Hewitt bent down, started picking up papers. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, she managed. Her voice sounded distant even to her own ears. Just tired, didn't sleep well. You need to hit the clinic? You're white as a sheet. No, I'm fine, thank you. She gathered the papers with trembling hands, walked back to the warehouse, went through the motions of work without seeing anything. That night, she sat on her bunk and pulled out the wooden box. She hadn't opened it since arriving, hadn't needed to, but now her fingers worked the simple latch. The lid creaked open. Inside, a faded purple butterfly. Stuffed fabric, worn soft, one eye missing. The toy she'd clutched through the streets of Nasiriyah. The toy that had carried intelligence worth more than gold. Beneath it, dog tags, not hers, her mother's. Dr. Meredith Brennan, CIA, blood type O positive. And at the bottom, a photograph. Creased, faded, but still clear enough. A younger Thaddeus Kincaid, 45 years old, desert camouflage streaked with dust and blood. He stood beside a helicopter, and in his arms, wrapped in a blanket, a 6-year-old girl stared at the camera with eyes that had already seen too much. On the back, in handwriting she recognized, 3 words: she will fly. Ilara pressed the photograph to her chest, closed her eyes. He kept his promise, Mom, she whispered to the empty room. He kept it for 22 years, and now he's here. She didn't know if that was good or bad. She only knew that everything was about to change. The lecture hall was built for 200. By the time Colonel Thaddeus Kincaid took the podium, 250 soldiers packed the space. They sat in rows, stood against walls, crammed into doorways. Word had spread fast. A real SEAL commander, a legend from the old wars, was going to talk about actual combat operations. The young ones came because they wanted war stories. The older ones came because they remembered Nasiriyah, remembered watching it on CNN while they were still in high school, watching Marines die on grainy footage, watching a city turn into a graveyard. Ilara sat in the back corner, last row, furthest seat from the podium. She'd arrived 30 minutes early to secure the position. From here, she could see everything, and more importantly, disappear if necessary. She wore her duty uniform, sleeves rolled down despite the heat. The butterfly was hidden. She held a notebook in her lap, pen ready, but her hands shook so badly she had to press them flat against the paper. Kincaid entered through a side door. No announcement, no fanfare. He just walked in like he owned the room. And in a way, he did. He wore khakis and a simple collared shirt. No medals, no ribbons. Nothing to advertise what he'd done or where he'd been. But every veteran in that room knew. You could see it in the way he moved. Economical, purposeful, with the quiet confidence of a man who'd walked through fire and come out the other side. He stood at the podium for 10 seconds without speaking, just looked at the assembled faces, let the silence build. When he finally spoke, his voice filled the room without effort. March 23, 2003, he said. Nasiriyah, Iraq. Anyone here remember that date? A few hands went up, not many. Most of these soldiers had been children then. I'll tell you what happened that day. 11 Marines killed, dozens wounded, a whole convoy ambushed in what was supposed to be a secured zone. The enemy used the city like a weapon. Narrow streets, civilian populations, fighters hidden in every window. It was chaos. It was hell. Kincaid clicked a remote. The projector hummed to life. Images appeared on the screen behind him. Nazaria from the air, smoke rising, helicopters circling. But while that battle raged, something else was happening. Something you didn't see on CNN. Another click. Another image. This one was grainier, taken from a military drone. It showed a compound on the city's outskirts, surrounded by vehicles. Operation Monarch, Kincaid said quietly, classified for 20 years, partially declassified last month. The room leaned forward collectively. Ilara stopped breathing. The mission was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Extract a high-value intelligence asset from behind enemy lines during active combat. The asset had information that could save American lives. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Click. Another image. This one showed men in tactical gear moving through smoke. SEAL Team 3, supported by Delta and CIA. 16 operators total. We went in hot, expected resistance, got it in spades. Kincaid's voice never changed, steady, factual, emotionless. But Ilara could hear something underneath, something raw. The asset was Dr. Meredith Brennan, CIA intelligence officer operating under civilian cover. She'd infiltrated insurgent networks, documented supply lines, identified key players. The intel she carried could dismantle terrorist cells across 3 provinces. The name hit Ilara like a fist. She gripped the edges of her notebook so hard the cardboard bent. No one else in the room reacted. To them it was just a name, a footnote in history. Dr. Brennan was compromised 2 days before extraction. Enemy fighters surrounded her position. She held them off for 18 hours. When we arrived, the compound was under siege. Click. The next image made Ilara's vision blur. It was classified. It shouldn't have been in this presentation. But there it was. Blurred faces, but she recognized them all. Young Kincaid in the center. Other SEALs whose names she'd memorized. And in the corner, barely visible, a small figure wrapped in a blanket. The timestamp read, 23rd of March, 2003, 18:47:33. Kincaid clicked again quickly. Too quickly. The image disappeared. Apologies, he said smoothly. Wrong file. But his eyes had found Ilara in the back row. Just for a second, just long enough. She looked away, stared at her notebook, tried to remember how to breathe. The extraction was successful, Kincaid continued. The intelligence Dr. Brennan provided led to the disruption of multiple terrorist cells. Dozens of American lives were saved, maybe more. We'll never know the full count. He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Dr. Brennan didn't make it out. She died protecting that intelligence. She died doing her job. She was 35 years old. The room was silent. Even the skeptics, the ones who'd come for entertainment, were quiet now. I'm telling you this story because it matters. Intelligence officers don't get medals pinned on their chests in public ceremonies. They don't get their names in newspapers. They die quietly, in dark places, for secrets most people will never know existed. But they're warriors just the same, maybe more than the rest of us, because they fight battles we never see. Kincaid clicked off the projector. The lights came up. That's all for today. Tomorrow, we'll discuss tactical applications of human intelligence in urban environments. Questions? Hands shot up. Kincaid answered them mechanically. Yes, the ROE was complicated. No, he couldn't discuss certain operational details. Yes, working with CIA was challenging. No, he wouldn't name other operatives. The session ended. Soldiers filed out, talking, energized. Ilara stayed seated. She couldn't move. Her legs had turned to water. The hall emptied. Soon it was just her and Kincaid. He gathered his material slowly, deliberately, waiting. Finally, when the last straggler had left and closed the door behind them, he spoke without looking at her. "You going to sit there all day, or are you going to come down here and talk to me?" Ilara's throat closed. She forced herself to stand, forced her legs to carry her down the aisle. Each step felt like walking underwater. She stopped 10 feet from the podium, close enough to talk, far enough to run, if necessary. Kincaid turned to face her. Up close, she could see the years more clearly, the lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the old scars on his hands. But his eyes were the same, sharp, assessing, kind. "Hello, Ilara," he said quietly. "Colonel," her voice came out as a whisper. "It's just Thaddeus now, or Kincaid if you prefer. I've been retired for 3 years. You don't look retired. Neither do you. But here we are, supply logistics specialist." He said it gently, without judgment. "Interesting choice of career. It's quiet. Is that what you want? Quiet?" Ilara didn't answer. Kincaid moved around the podium, leaned against it, relaxed posture, but his eyes never left her face. "You remember me," he said, not a question. "Every day for 22 years. And you knew I was coming. They announced it at formation last week. But you didn't reach out, didn't send a message, just sat in the back row and hoped I wouldn't notice you." Ilara looked at the floor. "I thought maybe you wouldn't recognize me. 22 years is a long time. People change." "Not that much," he gestured at her uniform. The sleeves were rolled down, covering her forearms. "Still hiding it?" Her jaw tightened. She slowly pushed the fabric up her left arm. The butterfly spread its wings under the fluorescent lights, orange and black, delicate and strong. Kincaid stared at it. His jaw worked. For a moment, he looked like he might say something, but the words caught. "When did you get it?" he asked finally. "My 18th birthday. First thing I did when I was legally old enough." "Does it mean what I think it means?" Ilara nodded. "The coordinates are hidden in the wing pattern. 31.0 degrees north, 46.3 degrees east. Nasiriyah, the compound where she died." Kincaid's eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, they were wet. "You shouldn't be hiding," he said. "Not you. Not after everything you've done." "I'm not hiding, I'm just living quietly." "Ilara, please," she pulled her sleeve down. "Please don't, I chose this. I requested non-combat assignment. I wanted out." "Why?" The question hung between them like smoke. Ilara looked away, looked at the empty chairs, the blank projection screen, anywhere but at him. "Because I'm tired," she said finally. "Tired of war. Tired of watching people die. Tired of carrying secrets that weigh more than bodies. I just want to count inventory and go home and not dream about blood." Kincaid was quiet for a long time. "Does anyone here know?" he asked. "No, not even your commanding officer? Especially not him. My service record shows logistics support, various postings, nothing classified. That's all. And you want to keep it that way?" "Yes." Kincaid ran a hand through his hair. He looked older suddenly, tired. "All right," he said. "I'll respect that. But Ilara, you need to understand something. I've been looking for you for 3 years. Ever since I retired, I've been trying to find you. Do you know how hard that was? Your records are buried so deep I needed a congressional contact just to confirm you were still alive." "Why were you looking?" "Because I made a promise to your mother. I promised I'd make sure you flew. And I kept that promise. I pulled every string I had to get you into the programs you needed, got you into CIA youth apprenticeships, got you sponsored for officer candidacy, opened doors that were supposed to stay closed." Ilara stared at him. "That was you? All those years I thought I was just lucky. No such thing as luck in this business, just people who care enough to make things happen." "Why?" "Because your mother saved my team. The intel in that butterfly toy," he gestured at her arm, at the tattoo. It gave us targeting information that disrupted 3 major cells. 80 confirmed terrorists arrested or killed. God knows how many attacks prevented. She died for that. And she died trusting me to take care of you. You did. You did more than anyone could ask. Did I? Kincaid's voice turned hard. Because from where I'm standing, the most talented intelligence officer of her generation is counting boxes in a warehouse and getting mocked by infantrymen who couldn't find their ass with both hands in a map. That's not. I saw the way they look at you, heard the comments, the butterfly jokes, the princess routine. They have no idea who you are, what you've done, and you're letting them treat you like you're nothing. Ilara's hands clenched into fists. I am nothing. Not anymore. I gave that up. I chose this. Why? What happened? She turned away, walked a few steps, stopped. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. Syria, 2022, 3 years ago. Kincaid went very still. There was a SEAL team, Team 5. They were pinned down in a compound outside Idlib. Bad intelligence had put them in a trap, surrounded, outnumbered, running low on ammunition. Command wanted to wait for air support, but air support was 2 hours out. Those men had maybe 30 minutes. She wrapped her arms around herself like she was cold. I was the intelligence officer assigned to the operation. I analyzed the enemy comms, found a pattern. There was a tunnel network underneath the compound. Old smuggling routes, not on any map, but I could hear them talking about it on the radio chatter. You found them an escape route. I found them a chance, but it wasn't authorized, wasn't verified. Command said to wait, said sending them into unknown tunnels was too risky, ordered me to stand down. Kincaid's jaw tightened. But you didn't. I couldn't. I was listening to those men on the radio, hearing them call for help, hearing the fear in their voices. I thought about Nasiriyah, thought about my mother, thought about what she would do. You disobeyed orders. I hacked the comm frequency, contacted the team leader directly, gave him the coordinates, walked them through the tunnels step by step. It took 45 minutes, longest 45 minutes of my life. Did they make it out? All 14 of them, not a single casualty. They extracted through the tunnels, hooked up with friendly forces, got airlifted out. Then what's the problem? Ilara turned back to face him. Her eyes were dry, but her voice shook. The problem is that I violated direct orders, broke chain of command, used classified systems without authorization. Command was furious. They wanted to court-martial me, dishonorably discharge me, make an example. But they didn't? No, because the SEAL team commander testified on my behalf, said I saved his men, said any punishment against me was unconscionable. The brass compromised. Honorable discharge from intelligence positions. Permanent reassignment to non-combat roles. Loss of rank. All my commendations sealed. Everything I'd done, everything I'd accomplished, erased. She laughed bitterly. So here I am, Captain Ilara Brennan, decorated intelligence officer, reduced to private first class counting ammunition in a warehouse. And I'm grateful. Because at least I'm not in prison. At least those 14 men went home to their families. That's worth more than any rank or medal. Kincaid crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He put his hands on her shoulders, firm but gentle. Listen to me, he said. What you did was right. Command was wrong. Those men are alive because you had the courage to do what needed doing. Just like your mother. My mother died. Your mother died saving lives. She died with honor. There are worse ways to go. I don't want to die at all. I want to live. Is that so wrong? No. Kincaid's grip tightened. No, it's not wrong. You've earned the right to choose your own path. If you want quiet, if you want peace, you've earned that too. But Ilara, you need to understand something. These people here, the ones who mock you, the ones who think you're weak, they're wrong. And watching them disrespect you, Watching you accept it, that's the hardest thing I've ever had to witness. Then don't watch. Go back to retirement. Forget you saw me. I can't do that. Why not? Because I made a promise, and because you deserve better than this. Ilara pulled away from his grip, wrapped her arms around herself again. What do you want from me? She asked. What do you expect me to do? I want you to stop hiding. I want you to stand tall. I want those soldiers to know who you really are. No. Ilara. No, please, I'm begging you. Don't tell them. Don't reveal my past. Let me have this. Let me have peace. Kincaid studied her face, saw the exhaustion there, the weight of years and secrets and sacrifices. He sighed, nodded slowly. All right, he said. I won't tell them. Not if you don't want me to. But I'm staying for 2 weeks. I'm running this seminar, and you're going to assist me as my logistics liaison. That's already been approved by your commanding officer. Why? Because I've been looking for you for 3 years, and now that I've found you, I'm not letting you disappear again. Not yet. Give me 2 weeks. Let me spend some time with you. Let me see who you've become. Then, if you still want quiet, I'll leave you alone. Deal? Ilara hesitated, but she saw the look in his eyes, the same look he'd had when he carried her out of Nazaria. Protective, determined, unwilling to fail. Deal, she whispered. Kincaid smiled. It was small, sad, but genuine. Good. Now go get some rest. Tomorrow we start real work. And Ilara? Yes. Tomorrow, wear short sleeves. It's too damn hot for long sleeves. Let them see the butterfly. Let them wonder. Let them talk. You've got nothing to be ashamed of. She looked down at her covered arms, nodded slowly. Okay, she said quietly. Good. Now get out of here. I'll see you at 600. Ilara left without another word, but as she walked back to the barracks through the fading evening light, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope, maybe, just a little. The next morning, Ilara reported to Building 12 at 0600. Kincaid was already there, surrounded by maps and equipment, setting up for the day's session. He looked up when she entered, nodded approval at her short sleeves. The butterfly was visible, vivid against her pale skin. Good, you're on time. Help me set up these displays. They worked in silence for 20 minutes, efficient, professional. 2 people who understood how to work together without excess communication. When Garrison arrived at 6:30 with a group of infantry soldiers, he stopped short. Brennan? What are you doing here? Assisting Colonel Kincaid, Sergeant, she replied without looking up. Since when? Kincaid straightened. Since I requested her specifically, Sergeant. Lieutenant Colonel Briggs approved it yesterday. You have a problem with that? Garrison's jaw worked. No, sir, just surprised. Didn't know the colonel needed a clerk. I don't need a clerk. I need someone who understands logistics and combat operations. Brennan fits the requirement. If you say so, sir. But Garrison's eyes were suspicious as he took his seat, and they kept drifting to that butterfly tattoo. The session began. Kincaid lectured on supply chain management during urban combat. Dry material. Half the soldiers looked bored within 10 minutes. Then Kincaid changed tactics. Let me give you a scenario, he said. You're a platoon leader, 30 men. You're operating in hostile territory, 20 miles from your FOB. You've got a 3-day mission. What supplies do you absolutely need? Soldiers called out answers. Ammunition, water, MREs, medical supplies. Kincaid wrote them on the board. Then he turned to Ilara. Brennan, you're the intelligence officer embedded with this platoon. What am I forgetting? Every head turned toward her. Ilara stood. Her voice was steady. Communications equipment, sir. Encrypted radios with spare batteries. Signal flares. Smoke grenades for marking positions. GPS with backup map and compass in case of electronic failure. Binoculars or optics for reconnaissance. Flex cuffs for detaining civilians. water purification tablets in case resupply is delayed, extra socks and foot powder to prevent trench foot, and cash, local currency for emergency purchases from civilian populations. The room was silent. Garrison leaned forward. For the next hour, Kincaid walked them through a classified operation from 2007. He changed names, altered locations, but the tactical problems were real. And every time he posed a question, "What would you do here? What's the risk? What's the solution?" he asked Alara first. She answered every question perfectly. By the end of the session, the soldiers were looking at her differently. Not with respect, not yet, but with confusion, with curiosity. Who was this clerk who talked like an operator? Garrison approached after dismissal. His face was hard. "Brennan, a word." She followed him outside. Kincaid watched through the window but didn't interfere. Garrison turned on her. "What's your game?" "I don't have a game, Sergeant." "Bullshit. You show up here playing dumb, counting boxes, acting like a nobody. Then suddenly you're answering tactical questions like you wrote the manual. What are you really doing here?" "My job." "Your job is supply, not intelligence, not operations. So where did you learn all that?" "I read, Sergeant. I study. I take my work seriously." Nobody reads that much. Nobody memorizes that much detail unless they've used it, unless they've been there. Alara said nothing. Garrison stepped closer. "You think you're smart? You think you can make me look stupid in front of the colonel?" "I wasn't trying to make you look anything, Sergeant. I was answering questions." "Well, here's a question for you. Who the hell are you really?" Before Alara could respond, a voice cut through the tension. "She's my logistics liaison, Sergeant, and unless you have official business with her, I suggest you back off." Kincaid stood in the doorway. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Garrison's face flushed. "Sir, You were just leaving, weren't you?" It wasn't a question. Garrison looked between them. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Kincaid waited until he was out of sight before speaking. "You okay?" "Fine. He's going to be a problem. He's already a problem. This just makes it worse. Want me to talk to Briggs? Get him reassigned?" "No, I can handle Garrison." "I don't doubt that, but you shouldn't have to." Alara turned to face him. "This is exactly why I didn't want you to come. This is exactly why I wanted to stay invisible. Now people are asking questions. Now they're looking at me. And sooner or later, someone's going to dig deep enough to find answers I can't give. Would that be so terrible?" "Yes, because then I'm not Ilara anymore. I'm the monarch. I'm the ghost. I'm the legend. And legends don't get to have quiet lives." Kincaid studied her face, saw the fear there, real fear. "2 weeks," he said quietly. "You promised me 2 weeks. After that, if you still want invisibility, I'll disappear and never contact you again. But until then, work with me. Trust me. Let me show these people what you're capable of. Not your past, not your classified operations, just your skills, your knowledge, your competence. Give them a chance to respect you for what you can do right now, not what you did before." Alara wanted to say no, wanted to run. But she looked into those steady eyes and remembered Nasiriyah, remembered strong arms carrying her through fire, remembered a promise made to a dying woman. She owed him more than she could ever repay. 2 weeks, she agreed. "Thank you." He went back inside. Alara stood alone in the California heat and wondered what she just agreed to. Wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Wondered if, after 22 years of flying low and quiet, she was about to crash and burn. Inside the warehouse, Garrison sat with Hewitt and 2 other soldiers. Private First Class Garrett Flynn, 23, and Specialist Marcus Webb, 24. Both infantry, both loyal to Garrison. "Something's wrong with that girl," Garrison muttered. "What do you mean?" Flynn asked. "I mean, nobody's that good unless they've been there, unless they've done the things she's talking about. And if she's done those things, why the hell is she hiding in logistics? Hewitt shrugged. Maybe she washed out, failed a psych eval or something. Maybe. Or maybe she's lying about something. Like what? Webb asked. Garrison stared out the window at Alara's retreating form. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. The shooting range at Camp Pendleton stretched across 2 acres of California scrubland. 20 firing lanes, backstops rising 30 feet high, the air thick with the smell of gun oil and cordite. It was Tuesday morning, week 2 of Kincaid's seminar, and the colonel had requested range time for practical demonstrations. Ilara arrived at 0545, 15 minutes before the scheduled start. She carried a clipboard and an equipment checklist, playing her role perfectly. Just a logistics specialist making sure everything was in order. Kincaid was already there, inspecting weapons laid out on a field table. M4 carbines, M9 pistols, a SAW, even a few M14s left over from another era. He looked up when she approached. Morning. Morning, sir. Stop calling me sir. I'm retired, remember? Hard habit to break. He smiled slightly. Fair enough. Everything in order? Ilara scanned the table with practiced eyes. 7 M4s, all properly cleared and locked. Ammunition crates stacked and sealed. Eye and ear protection laid out in neat rows. Safety flags visible. But one rifle was different. She picked it up, felt the weight, checked the action. Her eyes narrowed. This one's off, she said quietly. What do you mean? The balance is wrong. Either the barrel is damaged or something's loose in the receiver group. She field stripped the weapon with quick, efficient movements. Less than 30 seconds. The bolt carrier came out. She examined it in the early morning light. Here, she pointed. The firing pin is shaved. See? Someone filed it down. Not much, maybe half a millimeter, but enough that it could cause a malfunction, maybe even a catastrophic failure under sustained fire. Kincaid took the part from her hand, studied it. His expression darkened. This is sabotage. Yes. Who prepped these weapons? Ilara checked her clipboard. Sergeant Garrison signed for them yesterday afternoon. They looked at each other. He's escalating, Kincaid said. I can handle it. Can you? Because sabotaging weapons crosses a line, Ilara. That's not just harassment, that's endangering lives. We don't know it was deliberate, could be equipment failure. You don't believe that any more than I do. She didn't, but she also didn't want to make this bigger than it needed to be. Didn't want attention. Didn't want investigations and questions and people digging into why a supply specialist could identify a shaved firing pin by feel. I'll note it on the safety report, she said. Pull this weapon from rotation, request a replacement, standard procedure. Kincaid looked like he wanted to argue, but soldiers were starting to arrive, boots crunching on gravel, voices carrying across the range. We'll discuss this later, he said quietly. But Ilara, this doesn't end here. You know that, right? She did, but she didn't respond. The soldiers assembled. 30 men, mostly infantry, including Garrison and his crew. They looked eager, energized. Live fire always got the blood up. Also present was Petty Officer Brendan Wolfe, 38, one of Kincaid's old SEAL teammates who'd come along to help with the seminar. Quiet guy, steady, with eyes that missed nothing. He'd been observing the sessions, watching, evaluating. Kincaid stepped forward. Good morning. Today we're doing marksmanship drills with a twist. Not just accuracy, speed, stress, decision-making under pressure. The kind of shooting that matters in combat, not on a qualification range. He outlined the course. Multiple targets at varying distances. 30 seconds to engage all of them. Limited ammunition. Shoot, move, communicate. Who wants to go first? He asked. Garrison's hand shot up. I will, sir. Outstanding. Gear up. Garrison donned eye and ear protection with the confidence of someone who knew he was good. He was good. Everybody knew it. Expert marksman, combat veteran, 15 years of muscle memory. The buzzer sounded. Garrison moved smoothly down the lane. Pop, pop, pop. 3 rounds, center mass on the first target. Transition to the second, controlled pairs. Third target, fourth. His movements were crisp, professional, exactly by the book. 30 seconds, 10 targets, 20 rounds, 18 hits, 2 misses on the furthest target. Solid performance. The other soldiers applauded. Garrison grinned. "Not bad, Sergeant," Kincaid said. "Textbook shooting. Anyone think they can beat it?" Silence. Garrison was the best shot in the unit. Everyone knew it. Then Kincaid turned to Alara. She was standing off to the side, still holding her clipboard. "Brennan, you're up." Every head turned. Alara felt her stomach drop. "Sir, I'm not. I'm logistics. I'm not here to—" "You're here to assist with the seminar. Part of that is demonstrating proper technique. So, demonstrate." It wasn't a request. Garrison's grin widened. "Yeah, Princess, show us what you got. Probably never even fired a weapon, right?" The other soldiers chuckled. This was going to be entertainment. Alara met Kincaid's eyes. He gave her the smallest nod. "Trust me." She set down the clipboard, walked to the firing line, accepted the M4 from Kincaid's hands. Check the chamber, check the magazine, check the safety. Movements automatic, ingrained from years of training. She settled the rifle into her shoulder, adjusted her stance, breathed. The soldiers watched with barely concealed amusement. This was going to be a disaster. The clerk was about to embarrass herself. The buzzer sounded. Alara moved. Not the way Garrison had moved, smooth in textbook. She moved like water, like something that had learned to survive in places where hesitation meant death. Her transitions were faster. Her target acquisition was instantaneous. She didn't aim in the traditional sense. She looked, she pointed, she fired. Pop, pop, move, pop, pop, transition, pop. It sounded like a drumbeat, rhythmic, mechanical, relentless. 10 targets, 30 seconds. When the buzzer sounded again, she lowered the rifle, safed it, stepped back. Silence. Kincaid walked to the targets, examined them, walked back. 20 rounds, he announced. 20 hits, all center mass except one. He held up a target. The headshot hole was perfectly centered between where the eyes would be. "Want to explain that, Brennan?" Alara's voice was steady. Target 11 was partially obscured. In a real scenario, that suggests enemy in cover. A headshot becomes the highest probability kill zone. "And you made that assessment in half a second?" "Yes, sir." Garrison's face had gone pale. "That's impossible. Nobody shoots that clean that fast. Not without—" He stopped, stared at her. "Not without what, Sergeant?" Kincaid's voice was silk over steel. "Training," Garrison finished weakly. "Advanced training. Brennan, where did you learn to shoot like that?" Every eye was on her, waiting. Alara chose her words carefully. "I had good instructors, sir. People who believed in drilling the fundamentals until they became instinct." "Uh-huh. And when exactly did you receive this instruction?" "During my initial training, sir, and subsequent postings." "Logistics postings." "Yes, sir." It was technically true. She'd been assigned to logistics, eventually, after everything else. Kincaid let it hang there. Let the soldiers process what they just witnessed. Let the questions multiply in their heads. Then he turned to the group. "This is what I'm talking about. This is what happens when someone takes their training seriously, when they practice until perfect becomes automatic. Sergeant Garrison is a good shot, excellent even. But Brennan just demonstrated combat-effective marksmanship. There's a difference." He picked up another M4. "Next volunteer?" But nobody was paying attention anymore. They were all staring at Alara. She stood there, rifle at low ready, feeling exposed in a way she hadn't felt in 3 years. This was a mistake. Showing off was a mistake. Now they'd start asking questions she couldn't answer. Garrison pushed through the crowd. His face was flushed, angry. "I want another run," he said. "Best 2 out of 3. "This isn't a competition, Sergeant." "Sure it is. You made it one when you put her up there. So let's see if that wasn't a fluke. Let's see if the princess can do it again." Kincaid's expression hardened. "Stand down, Sergeant. That's an order." "You're retired, sir. You can't give orders." The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kincaid stepped forward. He was 3 inches taller than Garrison and 20 years older, but he looked infinitely more dangerous. "You want to go again?" he said quietly. "Fine, but not against Brennan, against me." Garrison's bravado cracked. "Sir, I didn't mean—" "You called her abilities into question. You suggested she got lucky. So let's test that theory. You and me, same course. Loser shuts his mouth and shows some respect. Deal?" Garrison looked trapped. He couldn't back down in front of his men, but he also couldn't beat a SEAL commander, retired or not. "Deal," he managed. They ran the course. Garrison went first, shooting with angry precision. 19 hits this time, better than before. Then Kincaid stepped up. 67 years old, reading glasses tucked in his pocket, gray hair and old scars. He ran the course in 23 seconds. 20 rounds, 20 hits, all center mass. When he finished, he turned to Garrison. "Respect isn't given, Sergeant. It's earned. Brennan earned it. The question is whether you're professional enough to recognize that." Garrison said nothing, just stared at the targets. The session ended shortly after. Soldiers filed away, subdued, talking in low voices. Ilara started gathering equipment, trying to be invisible again, trying to fade. But Petty Officer Wolf approached. He'd been watching the whole thing, silent and assessing. "Brennan," he said, "that was some impressive shooting." "Thank you. Where'd you qualify? What range?" She kept her voice neutral. "Various locations, multiple deployments." "Logistics deployments?" "Yes." Wolf smiled slightly. "You know what's funny? I've been doing this 20 years. I've worked with logistics specialists all over the world. Good people, essential people. But I've never seen one shoot like that. Not once. I take my training seriously. I can see that. But here's the thing, that wasn't training. That was experience. The way you moved, the way you assessed threats, the way you prioritized targets. That's not something you learn on a qual range. That's something you learn when people are shooting back." Ilara met his eyes. "I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to know that some of us recognize what we saw today, and we respect it. Whatever your story is, whatever brought you here, you don't have to explain it to me, but you also don't have to hide it, not from all of us." He walked away before she could respond. Kincaid appeared at her elbow. "He's right, you know." "About what?" "About not hiding. Ilara, what you did today, that was just a fraction of what you're capable of. And already they're seeing through the disguise. You can't suppress excellence forever. It bleeds through. Then I'll bleed quieter. Or you could stop bleeding altogether. Stop pretending to be something you're not." "I'm not pretending. I am a supply specialist. That's my job now." "It's your assignment. It's not who you are." Before she could respond, a voice called out behind them. "Brennan!" Lieutenant Colonel Briggs approached across the range. He looked serious. "Sir," Ilara stood at attention. "At ease. Hell of a shooting demonstration. Where'd you learn that?" "Training, sir." "Right, training." He didn't believe her either. "Listen, I need to talk to you about something. The weapon with the shaved firing pin. I had our armorers examine it. They confirmed sabotage, deliberate tampering." "I see. I'm opening an investigation. Whoever did this committed a serious offense, endangered lives. I need you to make a statement about how you discovered it." Ilara's jaw tightened. "Sir, with respect, I'd rather not make this official. Could have been an accident, equipment wear." "It wasn't an accident, Brennan. Someone filed that pin down with precision tools. This was deliberate. and I will not tolerate that kind of behavior on my base. Sir, that's not a request, Private. You'll give a statement to the investigating officer by 1600 today. Dismissed. He walked away. Kincaid watched him go. He's going to find out, you know. Once they start investigating Garrison, once they start pulling records, asking questions, your cover is going to crack. Then I'll transfer, request reassignment somewhere else. And run? For how long? How many bases are you going to burn through before you accept that you can't hide from who you are? As many as it takes. The words came out harder than she intended, but she meant them. Kincaid sighed. 2 weeks. You promised me 2 weeks. We're halfway through. Don't run yet, please. Ilara looked at him. This man who'd carried her out of fire, who'd kept a promise for 22 years, who'd moved heaven and earth to help her fly. I won't run, she said quietly. Not yet. But even as she said it, she could feel the walls closing in. The investigation moved faster than expected. By Wednesday afternoon, witnesses had been interviewed. By Thursday morning, Garrison was called to Briggs's office. Ilara tried to work, tried to focus on inventory and manifests and the safe, boring rhythm of logistics. But she couldn't stop thinking about the shooting range, about the way the soldiers had looked at her afterward, not with mockery anymore, with confusion, with suspicion, with interest. She was standing in Warehouse 7, counting ammunition crates for the 3rd time, when Kincaid found her. Hiding in here won't make it go away, he said. I'm not hiding, I'm working. You've counted those same crates 4 times in the last hour. She set down her clipboard. What do you want from me, Kincaid? What do you expect me to do? Stand up in front of everyone and announce my service record? Tell them about Syria, about the SEALs I saved, about the court-martial and the demotion, and the fact that I'm only here because I destroyed my own career to do the right thing. Yes, he said simply, that's exactly what I expect. Because hiding the truth isn't protecting you anymore. It's destroying you. You don't understand. I understand better than you think. I understand shame. I understand guilt. I understand the weight of decisions made in darkness. I've carried those things for 40 years. But I also understand that hiding from them doesn't make them lighter. It just makes you smaller. Ilara leaned against a crate. The fight went out of her. I'm so tired, she whispered. Tired of pretending. Tired of being invisible. Tired of letting people like Garrison treat me like I'm nothing when I know. She stopped, breathed. When I know I've done things that matter, saved lives that matter, made decisions that changed outcomes, and I can't tell anyone, can't defend myself, can't even acknowledge it. Kincaid moved closer. Then stop. Stop hiding. Let me tell them. No. Why not? Because once they know, everything changes. I stop being Ilara. I become the story, the legend, the cautionary tale. And I can't live like that. I just want to be normal. You were never normal. Your mother wasn't normal. Normal people don't run into fire. Normal people don't sacrifice everything for strangers. Normal people don't carry the weight you've carried since you were 6 years old. He put his hands on her shoulders, the same way he had 22 years ago in a helicopter over a burning city. Your mother died protecting intelligence that saved hundreds of lives. You've spent your entire adult life honoring that legacy. You've saved lives. You've made impossible decisions. You've been extraordinary. And you deserve to be recognized for that. Not hidden, not diminished, not mocked by men who couldn't do in a lifetime what you've done in a decade. Ilara felt tears building. She blinked them back. What if they hate me for it? What if they think I'm arrogant? What if they respect you? What if they understand? What if, for the first time in 3 years, you get to stand tall instead of hunched over a clipboard hiding from the world? She looked up at him, saw the certainty in his eyes, the conviction. When? She whispered. Tomorrow. There's a base-wide formation. General Marcus Aldridge is coming from JSOC headquarters. He wants to present me with some bullshit commendation for my retirement. Perfect opportunity. A general? From JSOC? Her eyes widened. Kincaid, what did you do? I made some calls, called in some favors, told some people about a decorated intelligence officer who got buried for doing the right thing. Told them it was time to make things right. You had no right. I had every right. I'm the one who promised your mother I'd make sure you flew. And right now, you're not flying. You're barely surviving. So I'm keeping my promise the only way I know how. By destroying the quiet life I built? By giving you the life you deserve. They stared at each other. The warehouse was silent except for the hum of ventilation fans and the distant sound of vehicles. Finally, Elara nodded, just once. Okay, she said, tomorrow. But Kincaid, if this goes badly, if they turn on me, if I lose everything again, then I'll be right there with you. Same as I was in Nasiriyah, same as I've always been. You don't fly alone, Elara. You never have. She believed him. God help her, she believed him. That night, Elara couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the breathing of the other women in the barracks, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. She pulled out the wooden box, opened it, stared at the worn purple butterfly, her mother's dog tags, the photograph of a little girl being carried to safety. I hope I'm doing the right thing, Mom, she whispered. I hope you'd be proud. The butterfly had no answers, just fabric and stuffing and 22 years of memories. But somehow she felt steadier. Morning came too fast and too slow. Elara dressed with mechanical precision, put on her uniform, polished her boots, rolled her sleeves up so the butterfly tattoo was clearly visible. If they were going to know, they might as well see all of it. The formation assembled at 0800. 400 soldiers in perfect rows under a sky so blue, it hurt to look at. Elara stood in her usual position, back row, edge of the formation, easy to overlook. Except today, Kincaid had requested she stand near the front, near the podium. She felt exposed, naked. Every eye in the formation could see her. Lieutenant Colonel Briggs called them to attention. The formation snapped rigid. Then a sedan pulled up, black, official. The door opened and General Marcus Aldridge stepped out, 62 years old, 3 stars on his shoulders, silver hair cut military short, face like carved granite. He'd spent 40 years in special operations, most of it classified, and it showed in every line and scar. He walked to the podium with Kincaid at his side. They looked like what they were, warriors from the old wars, men who'd seen things and done things and carried the weight without complaint. At ease, Aldridge's voice carried across the yard without a microphone. To honor someone who's been serving in silence for too long. The formation stirred. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Aldridge scanned the faces, found Elara. Private First Class Elara Brennan, front and center. Ilara's heart stopped, then started again, too fast. She stepped forward, marched to the podium, stood at attention. Aldridge studied her. At ease, Captain Brennan. Gasps, mutters. The formation broke into confused whispers. That's right, Aldridge continued. Captain, not private, because that's her actual rank. The rank she earned through exemplary service before it was taken from her. He turned to address the full formation. 3 years ago, Captain Brennan was serving as an intelligence officer embedded with special operations in Syria. A SEAL team, 14 men, was ambushed, surrounded, outnumbered. They had 30 minutes before they were overrun. The yard was silent now, every soldier listening. Command ordered Captain Brennan to wait for air support, to maintain position, to not risk unverified escape routes. She analyzed enemy communications, found a tunnel network, found a way out, and she disobeyed direct orders to guide those men to safety. Aldridge's voice hardened. All 14 SEALs survived, not one casualty, because this woman had the courage to do what was right instead of what was ordered. And for that act of heroism, she was court-martialed, stripped of rank, forced into non-combat assignments, essentially punished for saving American lives. The whispers grew louder, soldiers looking at each other, looking at Alara. "I was the officer who recommended that court-martial," Aldridge said. "I was wrong, dead wrong, and I've spent the last 6 months working to correct that mistake." He pulled out a document, official, sealed. "By authority of the Secretary of Defense, I am hereby reinstating Captain Alara Brennan to her full rank and restoring all commendations that were sealed or withheld. Furthermore, I am awarding her the Defense Intelligence Medal for Extraordinary Service in Syria, 2022. He pinned the medal to her chest. His hands were steady, but his eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, just for her. "I'm sorry it took this long." Alara's throat closed. She couldn't speak. Aldridge stepped back, raised his hand in salute. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present Captain Alara Brennan, intelligence officer, combat veteran, and one of the finest soldiers I've had the honor to serve alongside." The salute was crisp, perfect, a general saluting a captain. Then Kincaid stepped forward. He saluted too, his hands steady, his eyes proud. "Monarch," he said clearly, "welcome home." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Petty Officer Wolf stepped out of formation, snapped to attention, saluted. Chief Warrant Officer Silas Drake followed. Then others from Kincaid's team who'd been observing the seminar. Then Lieutenant Colonel Briggs. Then soldiers Alara didn't even know. One by one, they stepped forward and saluted, even Garrison. After a long moment of internal struggle, visible pain crossing his face, he too raised his hand. 400 soldiers, 400 salutes. The morning sun glinting off raised hands like a forest of steel. Alara stood there, tears streaming down her face, returning the salute with a hand that shook. This was real. This was happening. After 3 years of hiding, after 22 years of carrying the weight alone, she was being seen. Not as a clerk, not as a problem, not as a mistake, as a warrior. The formation broke. Soldiers surrounded her. Not hostile, curious, respectful. "Ma'am, is it true you guided SEALs through tunnels? Ma'am, how old were you when you started intelligence work? Ma'am, that butterfly tattoo, what does it mean?" She answered what she could, deflected what she couldn't, tried to process the sudden shift from invisible to visible. Garrison approached last. He stood awkwardly, clearly struggling. "Ma'am," he said finally, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you, about everything." Alara looked at him, saw the genuine regret in his eyes. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you hate me so much?" Garrison's face twisted. "My brother, he was killed in Iraq, 2007. The intelligence was wrong. They sent his convoy through an area that was supposed to be clear. It wasn't. IED took out his vehicle. He was 23. Understanding hit her. And you blamed intelligence for his death." "Yeah, I blamed everyone connected to intelligence. Everyone who sits in air-conditioned offices while soldiers die on bad information. I saw you as part of that, as complicit. Your brother's death wasn't intelligence failure," Alara said quietly. "It was war. Sometimes the information is right and people still die. Sometimes it's wrong despite everyone's best efforts. It's chaos and fog and 1,000 variables no one can control. I know that now, but knowing it and accepting it are different things." "Yes, they are." They stood in awkward silence. Then Garrison extended his hand. "Start over?" Alara shook it. "Start over." He walked away. She watched him go, feeling lighter than she had in years. Kincaid appeared at her elbow. "How do you feel?" "Terrified, relieved, exposed, grateful, all of it. That's normal." "Is this what normal feels like? I've forgotten." He smiled. "Come on, Aldridge wants to talk to you privately. He's got a proposal. They walked to a small office building. Inside, Aldridge waited with coffee and files spread across a desk. Sit, he ordered. Ilara sat. Kincaid remained standing by the door. Aldridge poured 3 cups of coffee, handed them out. Then he opened a file. Your service record is impressive, he said. 6 years active intelligence, multiple commendations, high-level security clearances, expertise in SIGINT, HUMINT, and tactical analysis. You're exactly the kind of officer we need. Sir, I appreciate the reinstatement, but I chose to leave intelligence for a reason. Because you were tired, because you'd seen too much, because you needed peace. I understand that, but Ilara, may I call you Ilara? Yes, sir. Ilara, the world doesn't stop needing people like you just because you're tired. And what I'm proposing isn't a return to field operations. I'm proposing something different. He slid a document across the desk. We're establishing a new training program, intelligence officers embedded with special operations, teaching them to work together from day one instead of learning in combat. We need someone to develop the curriculum, someone who's been there, someone who understands both sides. Ilara read the document. Her eyes widened. You want me to teach? I want you to build the program from the ground up. You'd work here at Camp Pendleton, stable assignment, no deployments unless you volunteer. You'd train the next generation of intelligence officers and operators. Make sure they don't make the mistakes we made. Make sure they're ready for what's coming. Sir, I'm honored, but before you say no, let me tell you what sold me on this idea. Aldridge leaned forward. Kincaid told me something about you, something about your mother. Ilara's breath caught. Your mother died protecting intelligence that saved hundreds of lives. She died doing her job, but more than that, she died trusting that the intelligence she'd gathered would be used properly, that the right people would get it, that it would matter. Aldridge's voice softened. You've spent your whole life honoring her legacy by doing the same work, by taking the same risks, by making the same sacrifices. But there's another way to honor her, by making sure the next generation is better trained, better prepared, so fewer mothers die, so fewer soldiers die, so the intelligence gets through and lives are saved. Ilara's eyes stung. You don't have to decide today, Aldridge continued. Think about it. Talk to Kincaid. But Ilara, we need you. Not in a warehouse counting boxes, not hiding from who you are. We need you teaching, leading, making sure her sacrifice continues to matter. He stood, extended his hand. Thank you for your service, Captain. All of it, especially the parts no one saw. Ilara shook his hand, couldn't find words. Aldridge left. Kincaid closed the door behind him. Well, Kincaid asked, you planned this, all of it. The seminar, the revelation, Aldridge's offer, you orchestrated everything. Guilty. I told you I was keeping my promise. This is how I do it. By making sure you fly, really fly, not just survive. Ilara stood, walked to the window, looked out at Camp Pendleton, the buildings, the ranges, the endless desert beyond. What if I say no? She asked. What if I take my rank back and still choose logistics, still choose the quiet life? Then I'll respect that. It's your choice. It's always been your choice. But Ilara, answer me honestly. When was the last time you felt alive? Really alive? Not just going through motions, but actually engaged with work that mattered. She thought about it, remembered Syria, remembered the adrenaline, the focus, the absolute clarity of purpose when lives hung in the balance. Remembered the weight of it, the nightmares afterward, the faces of men she'd saved and men she couldn't. But also remembered the satisfaction, the rightness of using her skills for something that mattered. Syria, she said finally, despite everything, despite the court-martial and the consequences, those 45 minutes when I was guiding those SEALs through the tunnels, that was the last time I felt like myself. Then maybe it's time to feel like yourself again, not in the field, not in danger, but in a role that lets you use your gifts, that lets you make a difference. Elara turned to face him. If I do this, I want conditions. Name them. I want to maintain my logistics assignment part-time. I won't abandon that responsibility. I won't be just a teacher. Aldridge will approve that. What else? I want to train enlisted soldiers too, not just officers, the Marines and sailors who actually do the ground-level work. They need this knowledge as much as anyone. Agreed. What else? And I want you to help. You've got 2 weeks left on your seminar. After that, I want you to come back quarterly, guest lecture, share your experience. These soldiers respect you. They'll learn from you. Kincaid smiled. I can do that. Anything else? Elara took a breath. I want to establish a scholarship, in my mother's name, for children of fallen intelligence officers. Give them opportunities, education, support. Make sure they don't grow up alone the way I almost did. Kincaid's eyes went bright. Your mother would love that. Then I'll do it. I'll take the position. I'll build the program. I'll teach. He crossed the room, pulled her into a hug. Elara stiffened for a moment. She wasn't used to physical affection anymore, then relaxed into it. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. So damn proud. Your mother would be too. I hope so. I've spent 22 years trying to make her proud, trying to be worthy of the sacrifice she made. You've always been worthy. You just needed to believe it yourself. They stood there for a moment. Then Elara pulled back. There's one more thing I need to do, she said. What's that? Talk to Garrison. Really talk. Help him understand that his brother's death wasn't about bad intelligence. Help him process that grief properly. Maybe prevent him from carrying it the way I've carried mine. Kincaid nodded. That's generous of you. It's necessary. If I'm going to teach people, I need to start by teaching myself. By letting go of the weight I've carried. By forgiving myself for the people I couldn't save. That's a lifetime of work. Then I'd better start now. She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. Kincaid, thank you for keeping your promise, for not giving up on me, for dragging me back into the light even when I wanted to stay in the dark. That's what fathers do, he said. The word hung in the air. Father. He'd never said it before, never claimed that role, but it had been true for 22 years. Elara smiled through tears. Yeah, that's what fathers do. She left before the emotions could overwhelm her. Outside, the California sun was bright enough to hurt. Soldiers moved across the base, going about their duties, living their lives. Elara walked toward the barracks, toward her future, toward whatever came next. She passed a group of young privates. They snapped to attention when they saw her rank. At ease, she said. What are your names? They introduced themselves. Fresh faces, eager, so young. Private Thomas Bradford, 22. Private Emily Grant, 20. Lance Corporal David Martinez, 23. You thinking about intelligence as a career field? She asked. Maybe, ma'am. Is it true what the general said, that you saved 14 SEALs? I provided intelligence that helped them extract. They saved themselves by trusting that intelligence and executing flawlessly under pressure. Still, ma'am, that's impressive. Elara looked at them, saw herself at that age, saw her mother, saw generations of people who'd worn the uniform and carried the weight. If you're interested in intelligence, she said, come find me next week. I'm starting a new training program. I could use motivated students. Their faces lit up. Really, ma'am? Really. Now get to where you're supposed to be. Move. They scattered, energized, talking excitedly. Elara continued walking, felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Purpose. Real purpose. She reached her barracks, climbed the stairs, entered her room. The wooden box sat on her bunk. She opened it one more time. The purple butterfly, her mother's dog tags, the photograph. She picked up the dog tags, held them to the light. I'm doing it, Mom, she whispered. I'm flying, really flying, the way you wanted, the way Kincaid promised. I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. The dog tags caught the sunlight, gleamed. Ilara put them around her neck, let them rest against her chest, next to her heart. Then she pulled out the photograph, the one of a little girl being carried to safety. She studied it for a long moment. Then carefully, she pulled out a pen and wrote on the back, added to the words her mother had written 22 years ago, "She will fly." And beneath it, she flew. She tucked the photograph back into the box, closed the lid. Tomorrow, she'd start building a program, start teaching, start making a difference. But today, right now, she had one more thing to do. She walked back outside, found Garrison in the motor pool, working on a Humvee. "Sergeant," she said. He straightened, wiped his hands on a rag. "Ma'am, Captain, sorry, still getting used to it." "It's okay, I'm still getting used to it too." "You have a minute?" "Yes, ma'am." They walked to a quiet corner, sat on a stack of crates. "Tell me about your brother," Ilara said. "What was his name?" Garrison looked surprised. "Tyler. Tyler Garrison. He was 3 years younger than me, enlisted right out of high school because he wanted to be like me. And he died on bad intelligence. That's what I always thought. That's what ate at me. If the intelligence had been better, if someone had done their job properly, he'd still be alive." Ilara nodded. "I understand that anger. I've felt it myself. But Garrison, I need you to understand something. Intelligence isn't perfect. It can't be. We're dealing with enemy forces who actively work to deceive us, with informants who lie, with situations that change by the hour. We do our best with incomplete information in an environment designed to kill us. But let me finish. Your brother died doing his job, protecting his brothers, following orders. That wasn't intelligence failure. That was war. And yes, maybe the intelligence was wrong. Maybe we missed something. But that doesn't mean we didn't care. Doesn't mean we weren't trying. Doesn't mean his death was meaningless." Garrison's voice cracked. "Then what was it?" "It was sacrifice. The same sacrifice my mother made. The same sacrifice thousands of soldiers make. They put themselves in harm's way, knowing the risks. Knowing the intelligence might be wrong. Knowing they might not come home. And they do it anyway because the mission matters. Because their brothers matter. Because something bigger than themselves matters." She put a hand on his shoulder. "Honor your brother by being better. By learning from his death. By making sure the soldiers you serve with are as prepared as possible. But don't dishonor him by turning his sacrifice into bitterness and hate. He deserves better than that." Garrison was crying now, full tears, not hiding them. "I miss him," he said. "God, I miss him so much." "I know. I miss my mother every single day, but I honor her by doing the work she died for, by making sure her sacrifice mattered. You can do the same for Tyler." They sat in silence for a while, just two people carrying grief, learning to carry it better. Finally, Garrison stood, wiped his eyes. "Thank you, ma'am, for everything, for not hating me despite how I treated you, for giving me a chance to be better." "We all deserve that chance," Ilara said. "The question is whether we take it." He nodded, extended his hand. They shook. As he walked away, Ilara heard him say quietly, "I'll be better, Tyler, I promise." She sat there alone as the sun started to set, watched shadows lengthen across the motor pool, felt the weight she'd carried for 22 years beginning, finally, to lift. Not gone. It would never be fully gone, but lighter, manageable. She stood, rolled up her sleeves one more time, let the butterfly catch the fading light. Orange and black wings, coordinates hidden in the pattern, a promise kept across generations. She touched the tattoo gently, traced the wings with her finger. "I'm flying, Mom," she whispered, "higher than ever. Watch me soar. Later that afternoon, Lieutenant Colonel Briggs found her in the warehouse. Brennan, Captain Brennan, he corrected himself. The investigation into the sabotage weapon is closed. Ilara looked up from her clipboard. What was the conclusion, sir? Equipment wear and improper maintenance procedures. The armorer who signed off on that weapon has been reassigned to remedial training. Garrison's paperwork was sloppy, but not deliberately malicious. Briggs paused. Between you and me, I think it was deliberate. But without proof and with everything else that's happened, I'm letting it go. Garrison's got enough to deal with. I appreciate that, sir. You saved his career, you know. By not pushing harder for prosecution, that's leadership. Ilara nodded. We all deserve second chances, sir, even people who don't think they deserve them. Briggs smiled slightly. You're going to be good at this teaching thing, Captain. Real good. He walked away. Ilara stood there, feeling the pieces of her new life falling into place. Then Captain Ilara Brennan walked back into her future, ready to teach the next generation, ready to honor the past, ready to finally be herself. The monarch had risen. Arlington National Cemetery was silent except for wind through the trees. Rows of white headstones stretched to the horizon, each one a story, each one a sacrifice. Ilara stood before a fresh grave. The headstone was simple, regulation standard. Colonel Thaddeus Kincaid, United States Navy SEAL Team 3, 1958 to 2025. She wore her dress uniform, captain's bars gleaming, medals displayed including the ones Kincaid had fought to restore. The Defense Intelligence Medal, the Bronze Star with Valor, the Purple Heart from a wound she'd never told anyone about. Behind her, a full honor guard stood at attention. SEALs from Kincaid's old team, soldiers she'd trained, even Garrison, standing straight and proud. The funeral had been earlier. Full military honors, 21-gun salute, the flag folded with precision and presented to her because she was the closest thing to family Kincaid had. Now it was just her and the grave. She knelt, placed a single item on the fresh earth, a monarch butterfly, real, preserved, mounted in a small glass case. You kept your promise, she said quietly. For 22 years you made sure I flew, made sure I became who I was meant to be. And now I'm keeping mine. I'm teaching, building the program, making sure the next generation is ready, making sure Mom's sacrifice continues to matter. The wind picked up, rustled through the leaves. I miss you. I know we only had a few months together after I stopped hiding, but they were good months, important months. You got to see me finally be myself, finally be proud of who I am. I hope that was enough. I hope you knew how much you meant to me. She stood, saluted. Thank you, Dad, for everything. The word felt right. Finally, she held the salute for a long moment, then lowered her hand. As she walked away, a young woman approached. Early 20s, nervous, carrying a folder. Captain Brennan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Sarah Kincaid, the Colonel's niece. I wanted to thank you for taking care of him these last months. He talked about you constantly, said you were the daughter he never had. Ilara's throat closed. He was the father I needed. I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry for yours. Sarah held out the folder. He left this for you, said to give it to you after the funeral. Ilara took it, opened it. Inside was a single document, a deed, to a house, Kincaid's house, and a letter in his handwriting. Ilara, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't mourn too long. I lived a full life and died on my own terms, which is more than most get. The house is yours. I always meant it to be. Use it however you want. Live there, rent it, turn it into offices for your scholarship program, whatever feels right. But mostly, I wanted you to have a place that's truly yours, a place where you don't have to hide, where you can be yourself completely, where you can build a life, not just survive one. You've flown farther than your mother or I ever dreamed, but there's still more sky ahead. Keep flying, Monarch. Keep soaring. Keep teaching. Keep making us proud. And remember, you were never alone. Not in Nasiriyah, not in Syria, not now. Your mother and I will always be with you, watching, believing, knowing that you're going to change the world. Fly far, little butterfly. Fly far. Love, Dad. Ilara read it twice, 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Sarah put a hand on her shoulder. He really loved you, you know, in all the ways that matter. I know, Ilara managed. I loved him too. They stood together for a moment, 2 women connected by a man who'd kept his promises until the very end. Then Ilara folded the letter carefully, tucked it away. Thank you, she said, for bringing this. It means everything. He wanted you to have it. He wanted you to know. Sarah left. Ilara stood alone among the graves. But she wasn't alone, not really. She touched the dog tags around her neck, her mother's, and now also a set of Kincaid's that his niece had included. 2 people who'd shaped her life. 2 people who'd believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. 2 people who'd taught her to fly. She walked through Arlington as the sun set, past rows of heroes, past stories untold, past sacrifices unmeasured, and she made a promise to them all. To keep teaching, to keep training, to keep making sure that soldiers had the intelligence they needed and intelligence officers had the support they deserved. To honor the fallen by preparing the living, to fly high enough that others could see the path and follow. The butterfly tattoo on her arm caught the dying light. Orange and black wings spread wide. 3 months later, the classroom at Camp Pendleton was filled with morning light. 24 students sat at desks, half intelligence specialists, half special operations Marines. The first cohort of the integrated training program. Captain Ilara Brennan stood at the front, markers in hand, a tactical map projected behind her. Intelligence isn't magic, she said. It's pattern recognition, discipline, and the courage to act on incomplete information when lives are at stake. A young Marine raised his hand. Corporal Thomas Bradford, the same private she'd met months ago. He jumped at the chance to join her program. Ma'am, what if you're wrong? What if you make the wrong call? Ilara set down the marker, looked at him directly. Then you live with it. You learn from it. You make sure the next call is better. But you never let the fear of being wrong stop you from making the call when it matters. Because hesitation kills more people than bad intelligence ever will. She glanced at the back of the room. Staff Sergeant Garrison sat there, attending as an observer. He'd requested permission to audit the course, to learn, to be better. He gave her a small nod. Now, Ilara continued, let's talk about Syria, 2022. A SEAL team was pinned down in a compound outside Idlib. Bad intelligence put them there. Good intelligence got them out. Here's how. As she taught, the butterfly on her forearm caught the light through the window. Orange and black wings spread wide, coordinates hidden in the pattern. On her desk sat 2 items. A photograph in a wooden frame, young Kincaid carrying a little girl through smoke, and beside it, a small preserved monarch butterfly in glass, returned from Kincaid's grave to her office. Promises kept, legacies honored, the next generation being prepared. Outside, across the base, construction crews were breaking ground on a new building. The sign read, Meredith Brennan Intelligence Training Center. Inside Kincaid's house, now her house, scholarship applications were stacked on the dining room table. 15 children of fallen intelligence officers. 15 futures she could help shape. The work was hard. The memories were heavy. The responsibility was enormous. But for the first time in 3 years, Captain Ilara Brennan wasn't hiding. She was flying. After class, Private Emily Grant approached. She'd also joined the first cohort. Ma'am, can I ask you something personal? Of course. The butterfly tattoo. I know it has coordinates, but what do they mean to you? Ilara looked at the tattoo, traced the wings gently. They mark the place where I lost my mother, the place where I was saved, the place where I learned that sacrifice isn't an ending, it's a beginning. Every person who dies doing this work leaves something behind. A mission completed, intelligence gathered, lives saved, and the responsibility to make sure that sacrifice continues to matter. Grant nodded slowly. So we honor them by being better. Exactly. By being prepared, by being professional, by making sure that when the moment comes, we make the right call. Because somewhere, someone is counting on us. Someone's mother, someone's father, someone's child. She looked at the students filing out, young faces, eager, ready to learn. That's why this program exists. That's why I teach. Not because I want to relive the past, but because I want to shape the future. Make sure the next generation doesn't make the mistakes we made. Make sure they come home. Grant smiled. Thank you, ma'am, for everything. Thank you for being here, for choosing this path. It's not easy. Nothing worth doing ever is. The student left. Ilara stood alone in her classroom, surrounded by maps and tactical displays and the tools of her trade. She picked up the photograph of young Kincaid carrying her through Nasiriyah, studied it. "We did it," she whispered. "Mom, Kincaid, we kept the promise. I'm flying, and I'm teaching others to fly too." She set the photograph down, looked out the window at Camp Pendleton stretching into the distance. Somewhere out there, soldiers were training, preparing, getting ready for missions they didn't know about yet. And now, some of them would be better prepared because of her, because of this program, because of the sacrifices made by people they'd never meet. That was enough, more than enough. Captain Ilara Brennan, intelligence officer, teacher, and keeper of promises, walked out of her classroom toward whatever came next. The monarch had risen, and she would never stop flying.